Cigar just released their statement as well yesterday, and one of the major things that they had pointed out was the corruption made in different organizations. And one of the commitment President Biden, when he was taking power, was that he was going to do accountability of this corruption. It's been a year, we do not see any accountability there. And two of the most popular individuals in this corruption, and they are named in the cigars report as well, are President Ghani and his ambassador here in Washington, D.C., who later on became National Security, Mohib. They are both U.S. citizens, and they, according to many reports, they have outside the country millions of dollars of worth of assets. What accountability has been done in 1 year?
Well, you're talking about two distinct issues. One is the issue of anti-corruption and the focus that the United States had on anti-corruption with the previous government in Afghanistan. That, of course, was a long-standing focus of the United States over the course of our 20-year engagement in Afghanistan. That chapter, of course, came to a close at the end of 2021, and since then, the United States government has been under no illusions that the Taliban will be responsible stewards of their country's economy, of the finances that are now, in some cases, under their control. That is why, rather than focus in precisely the same way in anti-corruption, we are very focused on channeling the humanitarian support, channeling the macroeconomic stability and macroeconomic support that we're providing to Afghanistan in ways that, in essence, bypass the Taliban. You see that very clearly in the trust fund that the United States and our international partners, with the assistance of Switzerland, established for the $3.5 billion in frozen assets, previously frozen assets, that we announced last year. You see that very clearly in the hundreds of millions of dollars in humanitarian assistance that has not gone through the Taliban's coffers, but directly to our operational partners on the ground, humanitarian partners that are doing the work that is so vital to Afghanistan's people, and especially vital given what the Taliban have been unwilling, or in many cases unable, to do for their own people. So that's been our focus now.
So, no, I'm sorry, I think I maybe have not cleared my point. U.S. citizens who were officials in Afghanistan, the accountability has not taken place in the last 1 year, except State Department official Mr. Olson was just, he went through some harsh things. But beside that, we do not see any accountability of millions of dollars of U.S. taxpayers' money that was robbed by these citizens, and they have stashed it across on the other side of the borders. Any accountability which President Biden had promised that he will be taking, no action has been taken about that.
There have been a number of reports about corruption on the part of the former government. We're, of course, doing everything we can to look into those reports. Many of those reports we have not been able to substantiate, but working with allies and partners around the world, if we are able to substantiate those significant reports of corruption, we, of course, will seek accountability, as you would expect. Alex?
If you don't mind, can you please confirm the reports that Russia handed an official note on suspension of New START to the U.S.?
Alex, I can confirm there has been the exchange of a diplomatic note between Russia and the United States. I think it is fair to say that what we have learned from that diplomatic note did not tell us anything we didn't already know from the public statements that have emanated from Moscow. Our position remains the same. Russia's decision to unilaterally suspend its participation in New START, it is unfortunate, but more so, it is irresponsible. It is the responsible thing to do for nuclear powers to engage in arms control, to engage in other tools of strategic stability that throughout the height of the Cold War and since the dawn of the nuclear era have prevented an exchange between nuclear powers. Russia is not better off in a world where the two largest nuclear powers are no longer engaged in bilateral arms control, and Russia's willingness to promote instability and use irresponsible nuclear rhetoric endanger every nation on this planet. Russia's purported suspension of New START will, at the same time, not stop the United States from continuing to support Ukraine. We are doing precisely what we told President Putin and the Kremlin and the rest of the world that we would do should Moscow continue with its aggression last year. Mutual compliance with New START, we are confident, strengthens the security interests of the United States, our allies and partners, but also of Russia, the Russian people, and the rest of the world. That is why we are working to preserve the treaty. We continue to urge Moscow to resume full compliance with the treaty. Even as we explore our next steps, we are demonstrating that responsible leadership that we think ought to be replicated in Moscow. We remain in full compliance with the treaty, including New START's numerical limits, and we're examining exactly what impact this purported suspension will have on the state of the treaty, but how Russia chooses to respond, how Russia chooses to proceed will help inform considerations of appropriate U.S. responses. Regardless, we are going to continue to see to it that we are postured appropriately, and if we see Russia take steps that require any sort of change in our own nuclear posture or approach, we will make those adjustments as is appropriate. Jane.